Today we're going to talk about all the chargebacks I had as an indoor playground owner and the 5 years that we've been in business. So as a total of 5 years, we had a total of 12 chargebacks. And to put that into context, per year, we would have close to 4,000 transactions. So last year we did 3,851 transactions. Per year, we expected probably about 2 to 3 chargebacks. Less than 1% of our transactions ended in a chargeback. But I still think they're a very stressful process. Not every chargeback we won. And so I'm going to talk to you about every chargeback we received, why we got it, and if we won them or not. Let's start at the beginning. We opened our indoor playground in 2017. My first chargeback was in 2018. It was December 2018 for $185. At that time, our party packages were super low. I remember them being probably about $200, $300 range, the most average party package. When we ended, our party packages were more around the $600 range. This chargeback was due to the fact that the mom was dissatisfied with one of the characters that she received. She had asked us to perform an Ariel character, and we had one of our employees perform that character. She did not like the way the character was dressed, and she did not like the performance the character put on, so she put a chargeback in for it. She wrote me several emails stating that she was dissatisfied with the service. She was offered a partial refund, but she was not happy with the partial refund. Therefore, after that, she put in a chargeback for the full balance. I did not think that was fair because we still provided her a service. She still got the amount of time that she had asked for. She was just not satisfied with one part of the service, which basically I offered her a partial refund for. The utilization of chargebacks is not really meant for buyer's remorse or if you're dissatisfied with a service. It's meant to prevent fraud, and people are using it in a way that it's really not meant to be used. So in this instance, I did win this chargeback because I had several emails from the client stating that she received the service. The second chargeback came shortly after that, actually just maybe about 2 weeks after that. This chargeback was for a gift card, but they mistook us for another indoor playground that was in a different location than us. And when they had called and basically said they made a mistake, they bought a gift card to the wrong place, they were refunded for that. This one, it made the chargeback null and void. So it got resolved in my favor because they had already been refunded for that chargeback. So that chargeback was not valid. The next chargeback after that was 2019. It was for $12.50. It was for somebody coming in to open play. They came in for an Easter egg hunt, and after the Easter egg hunt, they put in a chargeback for $12.50. Can you believe that? When I tell you guys really crazy stories about the customers that came into our indoor playground, there were literally people that would do things like that where they would dispute $12.50, even though we have camera footage of them being there. Now, for this chargeback, it was such a low amount. We did so many transactions with Square. Square decided they were just going to cover the chargeback, and they basically said, you don't have to spend anything. You have a great track record with us, so we're just going to go ahead and cover the chargeback for you, which actually really made me angry, I remember, because I did have camera footage of that guest being there. Yes, they did come back after they had the audacity to do a chargeback for $12.50. We were very, very lucky, and the next chargeback didn't happen until after a year later. It says here May 2019 is when the next chargeback came in, and it was for $50. It was not resolved in our favor. It was for a special event. So all our special events, we sell the tickets online. They bought the tickets, even with the description online, and they put in a chargeback for it because they didn't show up to the event. A lot of playgrounds now are going to have their special events that says non-refundable, and the reason why is because during the pandemic, there was a lot of this going on. So a lot of the description is going to say that. So even if your description does say that, there is a very big likely chance that you won't win the chargeback, because most chargebacks they can put in because they said that their credit card was used against their knowledge. There is no way to really prove when they buy a ticket online or buy something online that it wasn't fraud, right? So you're going to see a lot of these chargebacks you're not going to be able to win because there was no proof that said that they understood what they were purchasing, because again, they might have said, well, my card was stolen or somebody else used my card, and there is no proof that we can provide that says they were the official card holder and they authorized that charge, even though they did buy it on your website. Same thing after that. After that, we have a chargeback for 2019. It was for $163, and it was for a membership. So I remember this one specifically because this membership, the person bought the membership online for 2 kids. They came in. I actually have camera footage and I took a screenshot of the customer coming in with the 2 kids and doing their membership and activating their membership. Shortly after that, they decided to do a chargeback for that. So even though they came in, utilized the service, and bought the membership online, this was resolved in their favor. And I do remember for this, I submitted the screenshots and everything showing that they actually came in, redeemed their membership and everything, but it still was not resolved in my favor. Well, that's kind of a lesson to be learned about putting some of your stuff online. There's less of a likely chance that you're going to win the chargeback. So just know that going in, when you're selling ticket sales online and things like that, people shouldn't be putting in chargebacks for, like again, buyer's remorse, but most of the time they're going to put in chargebacks saying that they did not authorize the charge. And now it's up to you on how to prove that. Even if you have footage of them coming in, there's no way to prove that that person on the footage is the person that's the card holder unless you have an ID on file. We had a series of chargebacks from 2020. On February of 2020, we had a chargeback for $565.25. Okay, so the next 2 chargebacks is actually going to be chargebacks from a credit card fraud schemes. Now this chargeback I remember distinctly because this was actually credit card fraud, I believe. The girl called in and said she wanted to pay the party in full and she booked a party over the phone. Shortly after that, it came in as this was put as a chargeback. When I called the person and told them, hey, your payment got kicked back to us, what's going on with that? She was freaking out about it and she said that the charge was from her dad or something like that, and he didn't realize it was for the party, which it was just odd all around. Then she started scrambling to come in and make the payment. But during that time, I think what happened was that I wasn't there. The girl came in to make the payment, and I don't think I clarified with my employee that, hey, if she's going to come in and make the payment, she needs to make the payment for the whole amount, which is $565. Well, instead of making the payment for the whole amount, she ended up deciding just to pay the retainer in cash. And I believe at the time our retainer was about $100. So she paid the retainer in cash but didn't pay the $565. Now that was the first red flag. We should have realized that at that time that if she didn't have the whole payment up front, even though it was a misunderstanding, that there was something fishy going on, right? So the employee took the payment for the retainer amount. And generally speaking, most consumers who call in and book a birthday party, we only ask for the retainer. So I don't think the employee thought it was a huge red flag because that's what our normal process is anyway. So if the chargeback didn't happen, then we would have taken the normal retainer amount anyway. One of my things is that you're not supposed to reward customers that are doing behaviors that you don't want them to continue. So by allowing her to only put in the $100, we were basically opening up the door to allow this behavior to continue on, and we probably should have realized this was a red flag, but that didn't happen at the time. Okay, so anyway, we went ahead and took that $100. Okay, 2017 all the way to 2020, before the pandemic happened, we would send out a invoice prior to the party happening, allowing people to pay their full payment upfront before the party was happening, so that way we didn't have to ask for the payment during the party and make it really awkward, right? So this particular client who did the first chargeback, she ended up making her balance on a credit card prior to the party happening. For some reason, I just felt really uncomfortable with this, and I was like, there's just something up. She made the payment like right before she came, and it was just, I don't know, I just had a bad feeling about it. So I told the employee at the time, like, hey, there's just something really fishy about this. Can you ask her if we can get her credit card and ID so that way we can verify the payment? Thank goodness I did this. Payment that she made for her party, the day of her party, which was $524 on March 12th, which was the day of her party, was also disputed. And at that time, that was when I realized that maybe this was a fraud scheme. Such a weird party, just the way her attitude was. Felt like she was trying to be overly nice and overcompensating for the fact that she knew. Luckily, like I said, I asked the employee to get her credit card and her information. She said she didn't have the card on file because somebody else paid it for her. So that was the second red flag for that. So I said, okay, that's fine. Doesn't really matter. Just get a card and an ID that has her names on it. So we did. We got her ID with her name on it and a card with her name on it. So when this 524 came back, we ended up charging her card that we had on file for the full amount, plus any fees that we incurred from this. He ended up trying to charge back for that third payment that was under her card, and she lost that one. I had her credit card and ID on file, which basically showed that this was not credit card fraud. I checked her ID. She authorized this charge. So even though her last 2 charges were valid charges, like I said, I didn't win those disputes because I had no way of verifying that the credit card owner was her and actually authorized those charges. And obviously she was using other people's cards, so they didn't authorize those charges. So that's the reason why those first 2 payments that she made for her party were not in my favor. But the third payment, yes, I did win that dispute for $545 on June 18th. I finally got that payment from her and I was very, very happy about that as well. We had 2 chargebacks, April 12th of 2020 and April 21st of 2020 for $21.50 for some special events that we had during COVID that had to be canceled. A lot of our events that had to be canceled because of the pandemic, we gave people credit to use towards future things. A lot of people did use it as credit. Those 2 chargebacks were resolved in our favor because during that time when things were happening with COVID, the credit cards companies kind of changed their rules a little bit and put verbiage on their website that basically says that you couldn't do chargebacks just because you were dissatisfied with the service or because of COVID. We submitted their own verbiage back to them saying, hey, this is not a valid chargeback. We have a chargeback for $427.50. That was also due to the pandemic and that somebody put in a payment for a birthday party that had to be canceled because the government shut us down. When that had happened, we didn't realize we were going to be shut down for so long. It was supposed to be only like a 3-week thing, so we allowed people to have a credit while everybody else used their credit maybe a year after or 2 years after. This particular person did not want to use their credit, so they decided they were going to put in a chargeback. Again, this was resolved in our favor. Any chargebacks due to the governmental policies of being shut down was not the fault of the business. This couple actually eventually ended up using all their credit very, very close to us closing. I was very, very, very happy because I was scared that I was going to close and that they were never going to use their funds. There was a lot of people that were affected during the shutdown and all of them eventually ended up using their credit. They either used it for play, they used it for a special event, they used it on another birthday party. There was one person that used it for our retail area. She came in and she bought a whole bunch of stuff from our retail area. The last and final chargeback, my 12th one, 2022, it was a chargeback for $149.50. It was because the client had canceled a service with us and they decided they wanted to put a chargeback in it. So our cancellation policy is that you pay the retainer and the retainer is non-refundable. You pay an invoice stating that the retainer is non-refundable. The retainer is for us to block out the date for you. If you cancel, then you lose the retainer. That's basically how most contracts work. And so they had canceled the service with us and decided they were going to put a chargeback in for it. And in their notes, it basically said that they thought that they were going to get the payment back, which there was no discussion of that. They actually signed a contract, paid an invoice that basically said that it was non-refundable. So I actually fully thought that we were gonna lose this one. I had documentation showing that they knew that it was non-refundable, like their contract and their invoice, but most of the times that's like not enough for the credit card companies. I also think maybe a lot of this has to do with what the customer says their reason is for the chargeback. So if the customer says that they felt like the chargeback was not a valid charge because they didn't authorize it, then I think that you do have to prove that the customer was the one that authorized the charge by proving that you took their ID and they have their credit card on file. But if the customer said in this instance that they just thought they were going to get the payment back, then you proving that they knew that they weren't going to get the payment back really helped in our favor. So those were the 12 chargebacks that I received in all the years that we were open from our indoor playground. This is something I never really talked about. Some of the policies we had during the pandemonium was very controversial. I do think a lot of indoor playgrounds have changed a lot of their policies since then. They've become a lot more strict with their policies on payment and things like that. And I'm happy to be able to share that with you guys now. Hopefully you'll learn a thing or two from this video. I could talk to you guys a little bit more of the chargeback process in another video. I'll jot that down in my notes. Thank you for tuning in. Talk to you next time. Bye.